Welcome. One Gram. Welcome to the
One Gram Army Podcast.
Thank you for listening to my daddy's stupid podcast. And remember, his head is full of doo-doo, so don't listen to anything he says.
Generals, welcome to the 1 Gram Army Podcast. I am Graham. And you already know the drill. Tony.
Yes.
Baltimore.
Yes.
From Pod Caviar.
Yeah.
Available where you get podcasts is here with me.
Yeah.
As usual.
Yeah, of course. And you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna start bringing like a little sleeping bag and shit, man. I just sleep in the studio.
We might as well.
Just gotta be that guy, you know. And
ideally, we would live in a world where this was all we did.
oh yeah.
Because when we do it, magic.
If we fucking get to the point where all we have to do is do a podcast.
Oh my God.
Oh, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah. I feel like they'll probably be real weird initially.
Yeah.
Where you're like, wow, you guys had a lot of time to put that together. But after that initial situation, I mean, probably could potentially be the greatest content ever created.
Well, you fucking right.
Yeah. Well, anyway, welcome to the 1 Gram Army Podcast, sir, and where everyone is incredibly humble. And realistic. Of course. I mean, it's an important portion of this podcast. I do have one announcement to make. I would like to say that this is I'm inching in on 130 podcasts, and I've never had a soundboard. But now we have the official 1 Gram Army soundboard.
Yes, it's true. This man has no dick.
I'm not sure why that's why I started with that. But I think it's going to be a good opportunity for self-effacement,
of course,
and hysterical interjections.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got any biscuits for sale in there?
See, who knows?
Any
where a sound effect like that.
Any opportunity for us to do something absolutely out of bounds and crazy? Yeah, we're gonna take that. Yeah.
Silly though.
Yeah, silly.
Because my podcast, more than anything, the goal has always been to be as silly as possible.
Right.
It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
And a soundboard full of incredibly goofy movie cuts.
That fits right into the vision.
Yeah,
right?
It's absolutely.
Yeah.
It was on my vision board. I don't believe in vision boards and I don't have one, but if I did, a soundboard would have been big on it.
Oh, hell yeah.
And when it came to the podcast.
Right.
It was important to me to have a soundboard.
That makes sense. I mean, shit. Hell, fuck it.
Absolutely.
We played with that thing for about, a good 10, 15 minutes before we started recording. So
of course.
Yeah,
you have
got to.
Well, I planned initially on just dropping it on you and being like, hey, check this out. But I wanted you to be able to dig through it.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
You motherfucker, you.
Yeah.
Oh, so many good ones. But,
Sweet, merciful crap.
I'm not playing around here.
I love it, man. It's a great idea.
Yeah, I've upped the morning radio show quality of this podcast to new heights. And now other podcasters may be like, "Hey, that's hacky." You know what I mean? Like that's
fuck them.
Yeah, that's a hacky thing to do. What do you want to be a morning radio DJ?
What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Why?
Stop being a bitch and come on.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Fuck them.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
That's enough.
We're not going to get into a feud. We're not going to go back and forth with you. Just fuck him.
Yeah.
Fuck your feelings. You know? Be better than us or shut the fuck up.
Agreed. And if you don't think the soundboard's funny, I'm not really sure I want you as a listener.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm not sure. It'll be up to you.
No, I want us to get to the point of where people hear us and then they automatically get unresponsibly bothered by some shit that we do or say,
or the hacky thing.
Yeah.
But see, hacky has been a centerpiece of this podcast since it was sports with a capital F.
Exactly.
And
there's nothing wrong with that.
That's my goal. Why people listen to morning radio shows?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Dude, what?
People love those things.
We should shoot for a serious radio show. That way it can be uncensored and we can still have the soundboard.
Agreed.
And we can have callers call in and we can just do shit,
I'm okay with it just like this.
Yeah, I mean, this is fine.
I will do this forever.
Yeah.
And if you can't imagine that,
Let's stimulate your mind.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Fucking soundboard is in the house. All right, but I do promise that the soundboard will be used judiciously.
Okay.
And with great restraint.
Yeah.
Because the podcast is going to be normal, but I wanted to introduce people.
Of course.
To the soundboard.
To the soundboard, yeah.
So anyway, but I did want to...
I can say if we overused it, then that might be hacky, but at the same time, in moderation.
If we overuse it correctly, though...
Then it's a fucking grand slam. Are you shitting
funny.
me? Yeah.
The point is funny.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. No. The soundboard is here.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going anywhere. It's just going to expand.
Of course, as it should.
It's possible that at some point my podcast will just be me saying things and then like my favorite movie quotes falling in behind it.
Because instead of us just saying the quotes verbally, we have a soundboard now. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
We just have shit to say.
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Absolutely. But so, I will feature that lightly as best as I possibly can, prevent that from becoming a regular occurrence. It will only accent things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I can't promise that it won't bleed over into pod caviar, but I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure it will. I
can't promise it won't.
When you said soundboard, I was like, oh, okay, yes.
Yep. All right, but so what really was exciting me recently that wasn't this soundboard is listeners may or may not know, Tony and I were both aircraft mechanics in the Air Force.
Yes.
That was what we chose to do with our early 20s, was join the military and become aircraft mechanics of varying sorts. For listeners who may not know, me and Tony were what are called specialists. I worked on fuel systems. Tony worked on aircraft engines. There is a certain shred of aircraft mechanic in the Air Force known as a crew chief.
Yeah.
And for people who aren't familiar with that, a crew chief, as they're described to specialists, is jack of all trades, masters of none.
True.
But as an adult, having grown up, you look at what they really did. It's pretty insane. They were like responsible for like putting on landing gear.
Yeah.
And like, replacing very critical flight components among a group of people who was not the cream of the crop.
Right.
Of like mental stability.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I remember on a deployment one time, a crew chief telling me a story about a crew chief in England who stole a C-130, right?
Yes.
And then crashed it.
Yeah.
And I only vaguely remembered that. But a couple weeks ago, I was reading an article about, actually, it was on the BBC, and it turned out to be about this story. And the story that I heard was very vague, like, oh, yeah, crew chiefs used to be allowed to take the jets and do taxis.
Yeah, that's
right.
True.
Like, and for people who don't know, the taxiing is like moving the plane around out by the runway on the, outside of the flight line. Something you only usually
it's
see.
Like if you change brakes and you want to test the brakes on the, you taxi in and then do a
right.
high-speed taxi and then check the brakes.
Absolutely. And it's in it's in contrast to what most aircraft mechanics from our era would understand is that you could go on the jets and they do an engine run. But if they were going to move the plane around, there had to be a pilot in the seat.
Of course.
Believe this gentleman, Sergeant Paul Myers, in 1969. I found recently the BBC ran a story about this gentleman who was actually the subject of what I assumed was sort of like an Air Force urban legend at the time. I was like, man,
he was a bit of an urban legend. Yeah, I've heard that story plenty of times.
Yeah, and I was like, a crew chief never stole a plane because you have to have a pilot in the cockpit when you taxi them around. But apparently you didn't at one point. And so the crew chief could go taxi the aircraft around on the runway. And in 1969, a gentleman named Paul Myers, who was from Virginia, took off. He was a crew chief. He was, known to be a bit of an alcoholic.
Right.
He was 23 years old. He'd been married for 55 days at this point when he stole this airplane.
Oh, boy.
And essentially, he took it out for a taxi test. Yeah. His wife, I guess, was stateside. He was stationed at Mildenhall, which is in sort of southwest England. And there were 130s there, I guess, at one point. I went there once when I was in, and they had tankers. They had KC-135s.
I don't know what I've been there. I think I've been to Ramstein.
That's in Germany. Yeah, you go through there to stop.
I haven't been. We stopped at one in England. I don't remember what it was though, but it was like half military base, half airport. Maybe that's not England. I don't know.
Possibly.
They always sent us to Germany, and it was always cold and raining.
No, yeah, Germany. On the way between when you went on deployments, that airstrip at Ramstein is like you're in an airport, but you're also like in an airport that's just for people deploying to the Middle East.
Yeah.
Did you notice that was such a weird situation? Yeah. It's one of the things I think about the most is that it was like just like being in an airport terminal, except almost everyone was in uniform and it was everybody.
Yeah.
It was like me, like on my first deployment, about to go to Al Udeid and be bored for a couple months.
Right.
And then like dudes in line behind me who had like rank insignias from various branches and countries on their arms.
Yeah.
And
it was nice to sit back and see what who was coming and who was going. Yeah. There was one time I was in Han, Germany. No, actually I was leaving Al Udeid, and there was a group which I assume where they were some special forces or something, and then one of the people he was an older dude, but he looked like battle worn,
right.
And he had he just looked badass, and he had a pistol and everything on him. I don't know where they were going, but they were going into the shit. And that was in the middle of when the war was probably some of the toughest fighting.
Yeah, as hot as it was.
As hot as it gets,
Yeah. No, absolutely.
I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up. That was weird. And I haven't thought about that in years. Like how it was in the terminal.
Yeah.
There in Ramstein or wherever that was in Germany that we would go through. But I remembered that because I remember seeing guys with like Americans with other countries' rank insignias.
Yeah.
Guys with no name tapes. Did you ever see any of those guys with the no name tapes with sidearms and bags? And you were like, well, no one of us got to bring our bags. Well, yeah, because if something goes weird in here,
those are the guys that we need.
And I remember not us. I remember seeing Air Force guys with like on the back of their boots they had Velcro that had their blood type on it.
Of course,
they had name tapes on the back of their boots, on the back of their helmet, on the back of their shirt. I mean, it was very strange. Wearing uniforms you'd never seen before.
Yeah.
A very strange thing indeed. But we digress as usual.
Of course, yeah.
Sergeant Paul Myers in 1969 in Mildenhall. Yeah, that's really the big.
Didn't he like miss his family or some shit? Is that why he did it?
Well, it's interesting. He had just gotten married, and
right?
he was like 23, and he was in the
Yeah.
Air Force. And there's two guys who got married when we were young, and we were in the military.
Of course, yeah.
We differed from this guy in many ways, except for we knew a lot of this guy. I guarantee.
Yeah.
Who was in England? His wife was in the States. They got married 55 days before that. I'm not sure how that works.
Right.
And he missed her, and he missed her so bad.
He was going to fly from Mildenhall back to the United States in a C-130.
In a C-130.
Of course. That'll work. Yeah.
Undoubtedly. Right? So anyway, he steals this C-130, and the BBC article really does a good job of, like, walking it down, like, moment to moment, like, part of his planning. They interview a lot of people who knew him, but the nuts and bolts of it are that no one knows whether he crashed or whether he was shot down.
Really?
Yeah.
I heard he was shot down.
That is the thing I've always heard.
I've always heard he was shot down.
100%.
Yeah.
Official story turns out he crashed in the English Channel.
Really?
For real.
Really?
That's the story.
That's the official story.
The official story. And this BBC News article all centers around the idea that where they're like, well, was he shot down?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was. That's what we've always heard, right? Yeah.
Always heard.
Yeah.
And I didn't know who he was
when
it happened. It was a fascinating article to like really learn more about this like Air Force boogeyman story, about crew chiefs used to taxi planes around and one of them stole them one time. That was crew chiefs used to tell that story with like an air of pride.
Yeah. No, it was the same as people who saw Jesus walk on water.
Yeah.
I mean, it was. That's how it was.
And if you bother me, I'll steal that that because a crew chief one time flew one of those, which means I could 40 fly
fucking years ago, a crew chief did. And I'm telling you, and I worked on engines and then avionics. Okay, cool. Taking off is pretty easy, but getting to the point to where you can actually get a plane, make it to the runway,
right,
and then take the fuck off on it.
Yeah,
that's pretty hard.
No,
there's a lot of shit that happens before, even in commercial, because I know if you haven't been in the military, you haven't worked on aircraft or whatever, you're not familiar with that. Okay, cool. Even if you go on commercial flights, you just get on a flight and you think everything is cool, but no, it's not. It's a lot of shit that happens.
It's a lot of shit that
happens. The main thing is you got to get all the shit out of the way so you can taxi to the runway.
There you go.
You got to have enough fuel.
Clearance to move around.
Exactly.
Once you're outside of the place where airplanes sit still, the clearances involved in moving around are...
It's a lot of shit.
It is quite... there's a lot of pageantry to it,
exactly,
because they're like, "Oh, you want to cross the runway?" And you're like, "Requesting permission to cross the runway," and they're basically like, "We're thinking about it."
Exactly.
Because they don't know.
And you gotta hit the runway at the right time. You gotta get the right speed. You gotta know how to read the speed on the gauge. You gotta know.
Well, I'm not even talking about landing. I'm talking about the clearances required to drive across one.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Even that is a pain in the ass.
And probably, certainly, to taxi an aircraft onto a runway.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Require a great deal of clearance. This gentleman, actually, I mentioned it in the article. The person who wrote the article, who I should cite at some point, but is it this one? No, it's not. It's not up there anymore. So.
Oh, well,
check the BBC for the site. But anyway, in the article, the person who wrote wrote it. Interviewed someone who knew the guy, basically.
Oh, shit.
You know what I mean? Like some other younger airman. He was 21, the guy they interviewed at the time. He said, he was 21 at the time. He met the dude, and the dude had regularly asked him if he wanted to split the cost of pilot training, like civilian pilot training, because he had it in his mind that he could fly a plane from where he was to go see his family, like when he was on leave.
Right.
Like he could take leave and take a plane,
and
cross the ocean.
Cross the fucking ocean,
Yeah. But
of course,
obviously the gentleman declined his offer.
Yeah, I would have too. Like, fuck you. That doesn't even make sense.
But to me, it definitely indicates that his plan to steal this plane was thought out.
Premeditated, yeah. Yeah.
Which you would assume, right?
Of course, yeah.
Official story is he just went nuts, was homesick, stole a plane, and then he crashed it over the English Channel.
Yeah.
Had I been the person to make the decision to shoot him down, obviously I would have shot him down, considering the circumstances. The time it was, it's 1969. We're talking about the height of the Cold War.
Of course, yeah.
And some crew chief steals an airplane.
Yeah. No, he got shot down, dude.
Yeah, you assume he's going.
He totally got shot down.
You certainly assume that he's going to,
he's going to get shot
Russia.
Down. Yeah.
You have to assume
because you got to understand
Russia.
that, they want our technology, of course,
Right.
And there's a lot of things that happened back then where Russia had straight up
I apologize for that. For some reason, his laptop
weird.
just started playing
I hate when computers
TV
do that.
ad, and I was just looking at a news
I thought
story.
it was a phone, and I was like, holy shit, what's going on?
It was me, and I couldn't close it properly because it was one of those ones
that's current technology. They don't want us talking about this story. That's what it is. Yeah.
I believe it. The BBC's like, okay, thanks. That's
but
enough.
The fucking Russians, they wanted our technology, and there's been a lot of times where they have stolen our technology and mimicked it to a lesser extent. But it is what it is.
Well, and you have to concern yourself too if you're the person in charge of this decision with the idea that okay, he's a Russian sympathizer. He's going to take this jet to them.
Right.
He's a Russian sympathizer. He might run this plane into something. Also, he's like a rogue airman,
right?
Like a lower-ranking sergeant. I believe they said his name was Sergeant, so presumably he was like a buck sergeant, which meant in those days meant if you had 3 stripes, you were a sergeant.
Buck sergeant, yeah.
Yeah. So this 23-year-old steals an airplane. It just looks bad.
Do you really think that it would be that hard to make that decision to shoot him down back then?
No,
it wouldn't.
Not at all.
No, right?
Wouldn't have been a difficult decision at all.
Of course not.
Here's what I would say is if they were like, oh, he's flying real low, we can't get him, it's going to be hard to.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess maybe you assume he's been trained by the Russians or something, because all sorts of shit's running through your head if you're the base commander.
Of course.
And they wake you up and they're like, oh, hey, like a 23-year-old dude just
and see,
stole
that
an
shit
airplane.
Like that is why when we do our security clearances and shit, they're always like, you got to update us on anything that happens to you.
Yeah, no, it's like, they mentioned in the article.
If you get divorced, you got to let us know. And I'm like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
No, I fucking don't.
That's why.
I'm not going to get divorced and be like, you know what? Russia's looking really good right now. That's not what happens. Are you shitting me?
Nah, the idea though is that you would come under financial hardship.
Of course.
And then you would sell
and then you would sell
to
shit.
The Russians.
That and it's happened before, but those motherfuckers who've done it, a lot of those dudes worked for CIA and FBI
where's
and
the
shit,
Craigslist to sell information to the Russians?
How do you but there have been times, but those dudes have worked for like the CIA and the FBI.
Yeah, exactly.
And
there you go.
Not us who fixed the planes. There's never been a point in time when a foreign national has been like, I would like you to tell me what nut you used to fix that plane. I'm like, I don't fucking know, dude. Get the fuck out of my face.
It's set up. It's already set up to where it's just a book.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's a book, and this is how you change that part. No, it's
weird, yeah. But I understand the financial shit.
Yeah,
of course, yeah. But on our level, highly doubt that would ever happen.
No, exactly.
But in the course of things back then, if somebody fucking stole a C-130.
You have to assume, right?
Yeah.
You have to assume the worst.
Yeah.
So, as I'm walking it down in my own head, you can't really, come up with a scenario where they don't try to shoot him down.
Yeah.
That's my thing.
Yeah.
Right. But I think if you found yourself in a situation where they couldn't shoot him down and you knew he wasn't some Russian trained dude and you were like objective and you were like, well, okay, this is a 23-year-old kid from Virginia who misses having sex with that girl he married because they had sex once.
Of course.
And then, he's going to travel there to go see her. You could probably leave it alone because it'll probably work itself out because he's not landing.
No. Yeah, it's always easy to take off, but it's very hard to land.
There's no chance, really. No. I wouldn't like my chances.
No.
I wouldn't like my chances getting it off the ground because I don't know what you do with the flaps right before you take off. I mean, I would pull back. I mean, I guess if you go fast enough and you pull back.
I mean, you have a certain flap. There's a pre-flight checklist where it tells you where to put the flaps. Taking off is easy, and even if he was, let's suspend disbelief for a second. If he was able to take a fully let's say he took a L-1011, a Lockheed that was the top of the line as far as technology. They had auto land on that plane. I mean, cool. He could have done that, but he didn't. It was a C-130. So
in 1969,
he wasn't
anywhere. Gonna land.
No, he was not.
Yeah.
No.
But also, they said that in the article that he set the autopilot, and then because he was talking to his wife while he was in there, somebody radioed to the operator had plugged him in.
Yeah.
There's a transcript of it.
Oh shit.
Oh yeah, there's a transcript of it.
No way.
Yeah, of him and his talking to his wife. And basically by the time they start talking, he's like, I think I made a big dang mistake, sweetie. And he's like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And then at one point he says, he's like, I'll put it in autopilot. So he put it in autopilot, which is basically airplane cruise control.
Yeah.
It'll keep you at that altitude.
Right.
At that speed. As long as you don't run out of fuel, you'll fly like that until and as such. But shortly after he put it on autopilot, the radio cuts out and he's gone.
Oh, well.
So either the autopilot was like, oh, you go crash into the English Channel, or because the story is so convoluted because the English are like, the Americans in England are like, oh, well, we launched 2 planes and they couldn't find him. But there's a bunch of evidence that suggests the French launched some planes and the Germans launched some planes. And basically everyone was like, nah.
Yeah, they were like, nah, bro. No.
Need as many eyes and missiles in the sky as possible.
That is the most literal version of nah, bro, I've ever heard before in my life. Nah.
Of course they sent all those planes up.
Yeah.
Of course he was shot down.
Oh, yeah, hell yeah. He was done.
Yeah. It was funny, though, because initially when I wanted to have this discussion, I thought maybe someone would operate under the assumption that, he was, he crashed. But no one I know who I ever met in maintenance who mentioned this story that up to this point was pretty much just an urban myth.
Yeah.
Did they ever say, oh, yeah, he stole a plane and then he crashed it?
Yeah. In the English Channel. Yeah. You know how...
The story of when it happened.
Yeah.
The story of when it happened was like 1995 to 1950.
Of course.
The story of who did it was like 5 guys or 1 guy. The story of like why was like to go commit a murder or to smuggle kilos of cocaine or to just go see your wife. And then the BBC, years later was like, here's a story about what the
really
actual, at least the actual people involved.
Of course.
Yeah. And when I read the story, I was like, well, don't we all assume he was shot down? Because that's how that story ended.
Yeah.
100% of the time.
I will fucking bet money on the fact that he was shot down. I mean, he was shot the fuck down.
I feel confident in it.
Yeah. He was shot down.
It's a thing about conspiracy theories. It's like the plane in 9/11, the plane that, to me, was probably shot down. You know what I mean? Like real objective, reasonable reasoning about the evidence of that particular thing is like, oh yeah, like when they when they still talk about it, I was like, aren't we all know though, right? It's always like understood that plane was shot down.
Which one? The one in Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
Shanksville one?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I have a September 11th episode coming up, so.
I don't know either, but I feel like I had developed that opinion, and I feel like I could say it with such conviction that that's what happened.
I don't know.
Crew takes over, though, right? Like the people take over the plane.
Yeah, the passengers took over the plane.
But can't they keep it airborne longer than?
No, what happened
because
was
from what I understand, there was an explosion.
No, I don't know. From everything that I've done research on, and I've done research since it happened.
You've done more than I have.
Yeah, there was no explosion. They crashed. They took the cart, and those carts are heavy as shit. So they crashed through the cockpit. There were terrorists in there, and the terrorists actually crashed the plane, not the people. The people were in the process of trying to get control of the plane.
I see.
So. When they crashed through the door and the terrorists knew that they were fucked, they crashed the plane, which I imagine was the plan.
That sounds realistic too.
Yeah,
and that's what I'd always heard.
Well, but
I
imagine they would have been shot down because that was the last plane.
Right.
You got to think the other 2 planes hit the towers. The other plane hit the Pentagon.
Right.
That was the last plane. By that time, they would have got shot down.
So, that's what I'm saying about the shooting down theory.
Yeah. So, it's plausible, but as far as I know and all the evidence that I did, I don't think that it got shot down.
It didn't get shot down.
Nah.
Well, see, and I'm certainly willing to entertain that too, because people who would detract from that would be like, oh no, by that time we got planes in the air and we're kicking ass and we're like, fuck you, or we're shooting down everything but they were still incredibly confused.
Oh yeah.
It's the fucking government.
Yeah.
We're talking about like 6 different agencies now.
Yeah.
Because that didn't exist before that.
No, it didn't.
Those agencies didn't even know how to call each other.
No. And there's a reason why. And I'll get into this in depth in my episode when it comes up, but it all boils down to the FBI and the CIA. They didn't talk to each other because they didn't like each other. The reason why there were no rooftop rescues on 9/11 is because it was just a bunch of beef between.
No, it was bureaucratic.
On the upper level, it was the CIA and the FBI. They were beefing, and then on the lower level, New York City, there was the FDNY, and then the NYPD. They were beefing against each other. Yep. So the story is when the towers got bombed in the early 90s. They chained the doors because there was a beef between the FDNY and the NYPD.
Yep.
So that people, when 9/11 happened, they couldn't go to the roof and get helicopters to come get them and shit like that. And then the whole reason why that 9/11 happened is because the FBI and the CIA did not talk to each other.
Exactly. No. I know all this.
Yeah.
You go. Yeah. No. Don't give away your episode.
Yeah, right.
We're at the end of this episode.
It's gonna. Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It's awesome though.
No, it's fucking insane.
When you look into it, it's amazing.
These men are consummate snowball artists.
I'm not really sure that applied, but I didn't want to get out of here without getting that in the mix. Well, all right, everybody. I certainly appreciate everyone for tuning in. Mm-hmm. I'm not totally sure about the viability of the video part of this podcast, but it will be available as you're hearing this. Yeah. And very soon, a new episode of Podcast with Tony Baltimore.
It's on the way.
I feel like this was over a while ago.
Welcome. 1 gram. 1 gram. Welcome to the
1 Gram Army Podcast.
Welcome. 1 gram. Welcome.
1 gram.
Welcome. 1 gram. Welcome to the
1 Gram Army Podcast.